Hello, welcome. It is another Aoife United WFC jam-packed fans forum full of fun, joy, laughter, tears and colds, apparently, because some of us aren't too well. But we shall see. It's that time of the year, isn't it? So yeah, look at us. We've got a cracking panel. Same panel that was here a fortnight ago. So yeah, this should be really good fun. Again, thrown ourselves all around the globe, which we enjoy. So it'll be really nice to see what we're going to talk about, which is mainly to do with internationals this week. So they're all about to kick off. Some have already kicked off. Apologies, Scotland fans. But we shall see where it all takes us. But before we get started on any of that, let's be brutally honest. We're going to have to go into the joyous news that the FA seem to I don't know what's happened. Perhaps they've had somebody go in there and try and sort stuff out. But Lee Mason stepped down from VAR duties, which is probably a good thing, bearing in mind everything that went on at the weekend. And now, of course, we've had the joys of the red card situation. Now, I don't know if Connor's done his magical things that he's supposed to do, because I can force him to do things on Twitter. I can't force him to do things on YouTube. But one way or t'other, we have got a poll for you. We are in the final. And would you believe it? If you've been following our Valentine's Day, who's your favourite player type idea, you'll have noticed that we came down to our final 8. We had a good couple of hundred votes over the last 6 hours or so. And we've come down to a final 4. So you guys are going to have a go at voting your final 4. Obviously, you 3 will get a say in this as well. But the final 4 are as follows. We have got Mary Earps Baby, Mary Earps O, Ella Toone, and of course Leslie Russo, because that would have ruined that chant, wouldn't it? So both of them are there. And also Honor Battier. So those are your 4 players. If the poll is there, get clicking. Push the buttons while you're there. Subscribe and like if you haven't already. And we shall find out by the end of today's show who our favourite players are. We've mentioned Ella Toone. That's the place to start. Sarah, how do you feel about the fact that that red card is no more? It's gone.
I'm very relieved. It was the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning on social media. So very relieved about that. Although I have to say I wasn't worried. I mean, I don't think it was a red, first of all. But the idea of her being banned for 3 matches, I mean, it's not ideal, but it didn't worry me so much because I knew that, we have players who could step in if needed. And people were saying it would have been a great chance for Vilda to show that she can be a regular starter. So, yeah, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't relieved to see that it was overturned, because I just don't believe it was a red.
Well, we had this discussion on Monday where we had a incredibly sensible debate about it, I felt. And for me, as I said, I didn't blame the ref. From her point of view, from where she was looking directly on, Toone's back was to her. So if you think about it as a ref who's got no video help whatsoever, the lines person, I don't know whereabouts they were, but equally, as far as they're concerned, all they see is Toone's obviously got up above the player, and the next thing we know, the player's down holding their head. As far as the ref's concerned, well, you must have hit the head. So it's a tricky one because the refs give him what they can see. That, to me, is obviously why Summonen has found herself in a lot of trouble, because if I get it right, it was successfully deceiving a match day official or something like that was what it was. And that's what I mean. It's like it was very clear from the video she did not touch the face. So if Amy Rayner, sorry, I know you're married, if she's put in there, I saw contact that I believe to be to the face, and it's not violent conduct. So John, what was your thoughts on the whole situation, but then also on the events of today?
Yeah, I think I was obviously watching the match live. I thought at 30, I thought, Toone, what you've done there, I think you deserve to get sent off. But it wasn't just gone in ref. I think it's gone all of us because the initial replay wasn't good. But then when you see the replay, it's in the chest, so you're not going to particularly endanger an opponent if you push something like the midriff area. So for me, it's right decision to overturn. Obviously, it's benefits us because she would have missed 3 games, and obviously she'll be available now for 3, which includes obviously the Chelsea game. For me, the events of today, I know I was a little bit surprised it was Overton. I was thinking that they might retain it, so it's good that United appealed it and they got the right decision. And I wasn't aware about the Tottenham deceiving the ref. I mean, I saw that she might be banned for a game or 2 now. I wasn't aware of that rule. You know, I knew there was a rule that if you dive for a penalty and the ref gives it, then you can be banned later on. But for me, if you go back to the incident on the day, maybe both should have got booking, perhaps, looking back at it. So for me, it's interesting that if any player wants to con a ref, like claim a footballer has touched it in the face when they clearly haven't done, then they'll obviously have to face a punishment. But obviously she has the right to appeal that top player, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But as for Toone, it's the right decision, I think.
Absolutely. And Sporty's put here, kind of surprised about Toone's red being overturned. She did raise her hands to an opponent. Let's be clear, she raised her hands like no higher than a hip would be. So it's not like she was right up there, stood up with all this. I think she did raise her hands. Oh, hello, Amazon's here. She did raise her hands, but ultimately we have to be more careful. Beth, let's go over to you. What's your thoughts, especially with regards to this? I thought maybe she might have got brushed by the fingers. It doesn't necessarily have to be cheating, does it?
No, and as somebody who's refs, like it is very, very hard to get it correct in the moment. And obviously, if somebody is duping the ref, basically, like she was, or like just pretending that she got hit in the face when she really didn't, that is extremely difficult to actually call correctly. I'm happy it was overturned. Like it is interesting because you can play for fouls, but that was just blatantly wrong, and she shouldn't have done it. She should have known better. She should have felt where the hand was and not do that, because there is replays and they will find out, and that's exactly what happened. And I'm happy that they, in retrospect, got the call correct. And I agree with everyone. It should have been a yellow, not a red. I didn't see it live, so thankfully I didn't have that, oh, Toone, what are you doing? I had seen it. I saw the replays and was like, what? Why? Just why? And I'm happy it's overturned. Yeah.
Absolutely, me too. And I think, you know, this is exactly what I said. The assumption is the report that Toone was aggressive, struck the Spurs player's face, but she didn't. You know, the worst that has happened here to this woman is that in the process of moving her hands away, she's been flicked in the face by a stray fingernail or something. But the way in which she goes down as if an AK-47 has been exploded in her face doesn't help her. And I think this is the problem. So just popping around to the Spurs player, if it is the case, I mean, if she goes in front of them and says, well, look, she did catch me with a finger, you know, would you be expecting to see her be banned? Just short answers on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and I think we're all in agreement with this. It was a yellow. My argument earlier on in the match, Drew Spence pushed Hayley Ladd from the back, by the way. It's not like she's up the front. We're talking about raising hands. It wasn't even her that was being challenged. She just decides to, out of nowhere, just ram her one in the back there. Yellow card. It's the same thing to me. Absolutely the same thing. It's not towards the face. It's not raised high. You know, if there's contact with the face, that's a red card. It's very clear on that. It doesn't matter if it's intentional, if it's aggressive, if it's just a tiny push. Doesn't matter. Touch the face, it's a red card. That's what the rules say. They don't say, you know, that a push is a red card. So, nor is it violent conduct necessarily. So, there we go. We're all absolutely delighted. With the Toone part, the thing that I really want to ask you lastly with that is to do with the 3 games that would have been missed. Obviously, she would have missed Durham. She would have missed Leicester, I think, is the next one. But she also would have missed the Chelsea game. How important do you think, and feel free, go whichever way you like with this, but bearing in mind who Ella Toone is, how she's played, it's been a bit up and down. It hasn't quite been the Ella Toone that we are used to seeing, but we know that she can turn a match. How important do you think that is to have her available for that game against Chelsea, Sarah?
Very important. I mean, that was the main one that I was concerned about. I didn't realize at first that it would be Durham that she would have missed. Wasn't sure whether it would just be league games but games like that. I mean, I'm not the manager, but it would make sense to rest her anyway, bring some other players in maybe. But Chelsea, I think, absolutely crucial. I mean, as you said, she hasn't quite been at her best, but she does have that ability to turn a game, and you need players like that in your side. And obviously we didn't have the best performance or result against Chelsea earlier in the season, but just you would be more confident having a player like Toone in the starting 11 for a game like that.
Absolutely. Ian, you missed a fair bit. We obviously discussed the red card. Feel free to throw your opinions there. Should Toone have been rescinded? And what do you think is going to happen to Mannion is the other one. John, how important do you think Ella Toone is over those next few games and going forward into the title charge that we're in?
Well, I think she's obviously very important. I mean, maybe, for the games against Durham, I know we've had problems at Durham away, but this less thing similar Leicester game, I think we probably would have still had enough to win those games. But for the Chelsea game, I think it's massively important. Like Sarah said, I don't think she's been particularly playing great lately, but you can say that about a few players possibly. And so for me, but if you want to be competing for the title in the league, you want your best players available for the biggest matches. I think it was last season she missed the Conti Cup game away at Chelsea due to suspension. We weren't the same after that, so I think having her available for that will be a bonus. Obviously, going to Chelsea, we've never beaten them, so it will be a tricky game regardless. But I think having her available is obviously a good thing.
Excellent. And Beth, for you, there's a one that's just come here from Sarah. Very interesting point. She still thinks maybe give Toone a rest, still let Vilda have the game against Durham. She did quite well in the game against Durham in the Conti Cup. She got a goal there, and quite a good goal it was too. Would you go along with that? And again, how important do you think she's going to be over those next 3 games?
I mean, it's Toone. She's going to be incredibly important, but I actually do agree with that. I think Durham would be the perfect opportunity to rest some players that have been playing constantly nonstop, and Toone's one of them. Give her a little bit of a rest. Get Bo-Risa in there. Show what she can do. Once again, as we've seen, she can also change a game. But yeah, I mean, it's Toone. She's incredibly important. She's one of our best players. I'm very, very happy she'll be around for the Chelsea game, big time. But the other 2, I could see some rotation happening. So
absolutely seems perfectly fair. Now, I've mentioned it before. We'll mention it again now as we move on to our international discussion. But we have got 4 players that you need to vote for: Ona Battier, Ella Toone, Leslie Russo, Mary Apps. Remember, these are for your favourite players, for the players that you just adore more than any other. And we have got so many people that have already got into it. We've had 24 votes already. We've only just started. Obviously, we're not expecting the hundreds that we would usually get on Twitter. But still, it is tight for 2nd and 3rd at the moment, and 4th. There is a leader, and that leader is doing quite well. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes on over the rest of the show. So get people in, get voting. There's 28 of you watching, only 24 people voted. So chop, chop, people, chop, chop, click the button. And whilst we're waiting, and we're talking a little bit about some of the Lionesses that have been picked up. Obviously, there's a team of 6. We've got 6 people still going into this. What one are we in? It's not the She Believes. What one are we doing?
Arnold Clark.
Arnold Clark.
Thank you, Arnold Clark. There it is. It's gone again. I wanted to make sure I got the right competition this time because, can go wrong. But yes, we've got our usual suspects in there. Mary Earps has been picked. We know that Toone's going. Russo's going. Zellam's been picked again. The big surprise for me was that Rambo's gone, which is really quite an interesting thing. There she is as a goalie for Everton. She's been given the opportunity to go and be part of the squad, whether or not she'll play. So, Sarah, my first question to you is about Rambo. What did you think about that? Seeing her get called up, do you feel like she's going to get any minutes? Do you think it's going to be a good opportunity for her just to be around that? And do you think she's earned it?
I think it's definitely a good opportunity for her. Whether she will get minutes is another matter. It's with keepers especially, it's quite difficult. I mean, Earps is like sensational, so it's very hard to see anybody kind of taking her place. So I would be surprised if she got minutes, but I think it will definitely benefit her just to have that experience. I would say it's probably, this is obviously no disrespect to her, but it's probably with that in mind that the chance to give her that experience and to have backup with your keepers. So I would say that's a lot of the reason behind it.
Okay, fair enough. And no Paris in the team, John Commode. Do you feel sorry for Keats? She's had some games. She's had some game time for United, but seems to have somehow played herself out of the team rather than retaining her position. Do you feel like that's fair? Do you think that's right? I would say it's probably Coombs that's come in to replace her. What's your thoughts?
I'm a little bit surprised by Paris being left out. I don't think she's been playing too badly. I think obviously she got the 2 goals at Sunderland, didn't she? And she won the match against Liverpool, which I'm sure most of us would disagree with, but I don't think she's in that bad a form. And like I say, she scored a couple of goals the turn of the year. I think it's interesting. Maybe she wants to try out. Serena wants to try out a few players that haven't had an opportunity yet. And obviously we know Paris wasn't a regular starter at the Euros and that, but for me it's I don't know what the reason for that is. Maybe, like I say, she just wants to give opportunities to people which haven't been there before. But for me, I think obviously Paris, she's just got to focus on, helping the team and that, and obviously, hopefully, she'll help us to the top 3 and end up getting to the World Cup. But it does surprise me a little bit that she isn't in the England team.
Absolutely, and Beth, we'll come to you in just a second. But Bob, the plan isn't today to be talking too much about Skinner's tactics and stuff. We thought we'd have a day off because we seem to have that conversation almost every time we're on screen. But what's your opinion on him subbing the right winger on 65 minutes most games, then left winger on 75? Listen, he's the boss. I've had my discussion on him many times, but at the end of the day, whatever he's doing is working. We're top of the WSL. We're still in the FA Cup. We're out of the Conti Cup, but who cares about that? Mickey Mouse Cup, not interested. So, I think it's working ultimately, and that's a big thing. It is what it is. He's doing quite well, and we'll just throw in here that we will be talking a little bit about Leon a little bit later on when we get to the Canada side of things. But we're still with the Lionesses and young Beth. Do you not feel a little bit sorry for Hannah Blundell? I saw quite a bit on my Twitter timeline that she's been doing really well this season. I mean, she has. I think last season, if we're being fair and honest, I can remember being stood in with the crowd and we were a little bit worried at times, especially against Man City at home when we got whooped 4-0. I think it was the one on that one, or 4-1. it didn't go well, and she had a couple of dodgy moments, and she just seems to have a bit of a hard time of it. This season, we haven't seen that. She's been solid. She's been brilliant going forward. She got her first goal for the club. Do you feel like it was a little bit harsh that there was no call up for Hannah? And what's your thoughts on the players that have been chosen?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel bad for her because, like you said, she has been playing really, really well. And you're always going to need depth, especially in those outside back positions. You're always going to need depth. I mean, the players that did get called up, I'm not surprised by most of them. Rainbow, I am a little surprised by like everybody else, but good for her. She's absolutely deserved it. She's played lights out. I've seen some of her games, played really, really well. Paris, I'm kind of surprised, but also, again, not surprised. Yeah. I wish Hannah Blundell would have gotten called up, just at least to get like a foot in the door and show Serena what she can do. And like you said, she's been incredibly solid this season. Sorry, and yeah, I wish she would have gotten called up.
Well, I think John Fry's made a really good point here, hasn't he? It's weird that number 9 is our starting left back. And if that's the case, that they're taking Daly there and putting her at left back, it was an argument that we had way back on this channel. We had Rob, I think it was Megan we had, but there was a big old conversation about who we were going to choose as our players that would go into those positions. And yeah, it was a tricky one, but we had this same argument about Rachel Daly. You know, yes, she can go in there, but what are you putting her there for? Is it for her attacking ability or is it for her defensive ability? Because I think if you go in just as a general defensive one, it seems quite reasonable to choose Hannah Blundell, who plays that position. Has anyone got anything else they want to add on the Lionesses or Blundell or anything like that, or even Paris? If you haven't had your say yet, speak now or forever hold your frozen peas.
I will just say that. Sorry, go ahead.
You go, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to say quickly that I am happy to see Laetitia in there because she has been fantastic. Hands down, I think our best summer signing. She's been brilliant. So I wasn't surprised to see her make her debut in November, I think it was. So yeah, I hope she has a really good tournament. That's all I wanted to say.
Well done, because Maya was the one that I'd forgotten. I was sitting there going, I've only named 5, but maybe nobody will notice. Good job. Well played.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I think Anna's a little bit unlucky. Like you say, she had a good season. It's interesting that of our main 5, the goalkeeper in the back, or all but one only is English, aren't they? So maybe they're trying to. She doesn't want to be a bit biased, so I'll pick them, but not them kind of thing. I don't know, but obviously I'm glad Maya's had an opportunity to have a very good season, one for the future. But yeah, I think Anna's a little bit lucky to be missing on. Yeah, it's up Rachel Daly left back for England, forward for Villa, and she's scoring goals for Villa, so she's a jack of all trades.
Absolutely, and great point here. Playing Daly at left back is a way to get yet another world-class attacker in on the attack. You don't need a stout defender. And absolutely, when you look at the players, the teams that we're playing, we've got South Korea, we've got Italy, we've got Belgium. Is there anybody there that really worries any of you? I mean, we've seen the Euros. Obviously, Korea weren't in the Euros, and if they were, why? But other than that, we saw Italy, we saw Belgium. Any worries there, or do we feel like the European champions should be coming out of that with 3 wins?
If I was an England fan, I wouldn't be worried. I'd be pretty confident.
I mean,
I agree.
You're not an England. I thought everybody was an England fan. What's going on here?
No, I think we'll win all 3. Yeah,
absolutely. And just a quick pop back because Ian's finally got in. His point there, absolutely spot on. This guy did referee in, so this explains it. Was excessive thought of brutality used on the push? No. It was a contact on the head or the face? No. So it's a yellow for him, but it can't be applied retrospectively. So she got away with one there, which is probably the least she deserves. So come out of that quite well. I think. Excellent. So we had a really good chat there about the joys of the Lionesses, and of course, as ever, we wish them luck in this lovely little tournament they've got going on. But we've got lots of Reds that are going out for international duty. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get Sarah on the channel today is, in case you haven't noticed, clearly she's not an England fan. Obviously, the accent gives it away. She is from somewhere entirely different, the land of Ireland. And we've got an Irish Red. We used to have one. Although I might get this wrong now, I'm going to get myself told off. But Diane Caldwell, she was a U Ireland, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so we had Diane Caldwell. Obviously, she went off to Reading, but now Aoife Mannion has had her first call up internationally for Ireland. Her mum and her dad were both Irish. So who better to ask than an Irish person? How do you feel about having Aoife called up, and how do you think that helps your national side?
I'm really happy about it. I mean, I think it was December when I first heard the rumours that she would accept a call up. So, I mean, I'm obviously biased. I love to have an Irish international in any United team, and it's been a good few years since we last had one for the men. So I always love to see that. But also, I think I wrote a piece on this recently for Since 71, but I think it's a great career move for Aoife as well. She's 27, and the chance to hopefully play in a major tournament internationally is great, going to be great for her. There has been a bit of backlash from people who feel that, you know, everybody wants to play for Ireland now because there's a World Cup coming up, and if they couldn't get selected for England. But Aoife's given a few interviews this week, and she's pretty much said it's been a long-term ambition to play for Ireland. She's very proud of her heritage, and she has had a couple of England call-ups but didn't get on the pitch. And she has said that her family have been very honest about, you know, they wanted her to think carefully about it. If she did get an England cap, that rules out any ambition or any opportunity she would have had to play for Ireland, which sounds like it's something she takes very seriously. So I think when she actually gets minutes on the pitch, that kind of backlash will go away, hopefully. And I mean, we love people who give everything for the green shirt. So I've no doubt she'll do that, and I think that'll win people over.
You mentioning men's players, and part of me wondering if it's Paul McGrath being the last Irish player. The others were sort of Northern Irish, like Johnny Evans.
Well, we had John O'Shea.
He was Irish, big Irish, not little Irish.
We better not mention a certain player at West Ham, though, had we?
Beth, I'm going to ask you the question that obviously Sarah's just brought up. Do you think, oh, and by the way, Sarah, other Sarah, no, not that one, this one. Stay tuned. We're getting there. It's on the list. But yeah, Beth, what's your thoughts on Aoife getting called up? Do you think that's a reasonable thing to say? And I say this in the nicest of ways, but the English back two are very strong. Do you think there is an element of looking at the Lionesses and going, well, do you know what? Maybe I'm not going to break into that team. So exploring other options, because I don't think it's an unfair accusation that's thrown around in general that people might look at other international countries and go, well, I could play for them. That would be more of a chance to be involved internationally, which of course has got to be a dream for most people. Or do you go along with what Sarah says here, and actually it must be something that she's thought about for a long time? She's thinking about her heritage, and so therefore something that she's quite happy to do.
Honestly, I think it can be one and the same. It can be both at the same time. I mean, it happens in the U.S. almost all the time. We get, because our national team historically has been extremely strong. So people will go England, New Zealand, maybe not, I can't think of anybody going to Australia, but Canada. Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens. I don't think you can look down on people who do that, because obviously they do have some sort of connection with their heritage to even want, like, to even think about doing that. Because there are some people who let's say, will come from another country and are like, I don't want to play for them. I want to play for this team, and choose, let's say, England over Ireland, just as an example, or the US over Canada or the US over Mexico, and are determined to play for like the US versus Mexico. I'll use that more of an example. But they don't get called in, they don't have anything, but they feel more of that nationality that they want to play for, so they decide not to go back on their heritage. But there are a lot of people who are like, I feel this connection. I know my culture through my parents. Let's do it. And I feel like that's probably more of what is happening with Aoife, which is honestly a beautiful thing to see, that you still have a connection with that culture and that heritage to even want to put on that shirt.
I mean, it's been lovely as well seeing those childhood pictures she's posted in Ireland shirts, and she had a very Irish experience growing up in the Midlands, you know, all the traditions, playing GAA and going to mass and all this kind of thing.
I'm not being funny. Her name's Aoife.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say.
I always know she was
Can't get much more Irish than that, surely.
Aoife, well, wonderful name, Aoife. But no, I think it's good for her. You know, she's going to play for Ireland. I have had issues with, you know, like certain players I mentioned, like a certain West Ham player played 3 friendlies for Ireland, now plays for England. I think that you can question some of the rules regarding that, but Aoife's not played for England. It doesn't look like she's going to play for England, and you know, she having Irish parents. I mean, I'm English, and you know, I support England, but I do have Irish heritage in me, and you know, Ireland's my second country, as it were.
Right, so I have a question for you, Johnny, on this one.
Yeah.
We all seem quite happy, and we're very happy for Aoife. It's great she's been called up. She deserves to play for an international.
Yeah.
That's superb. However, if she plays in this game against China, are you worried? Because she's not really had full competitive minutes yet. Would you be a bit nervous that she could play and then get injured again?
Well, I think that as always that risk isn't there if she does play in that. I mean, you would have thought the manager would check to see how many minutes she can play in that kind of thing, and you know, linking with the club, say like, we don't want to do it. So, well, let's face it, doesn't look like MLT and Millie are gonna go anytime soon unless one of them gets injured. So she's not exactly playing minutes for United. So, but I do think you got to manage it as best as possible. I'm sure the Ireland manager will be aware of, you know, the fitness and, you know, that kind of thing, and hopefully it will continue with a recuperation and returning to football. So I'm not too worried, but obviously there's always a risk you'll get injured in a game.
Absolutely. And look at this here. I mean, look what's going on here. John's put, I'm the same. I could play for either England or Spain, making him Senior Fry. I thought he was John Fry Senior. He kept telling us that he was too old to play football, but all of a sudden now he's going to be up there with the likes of Xavi. Good stuff, Mr. Fry. Good stuff. Even TJ's impressed. He's like, nice. Fair play. Which one would you choose, John? Just out of interest, would you go England or Spain on that one? So we'll throw that one out there. And yes, re-injury is always a possibility. I'm sure the med staff are just as good as any other international side, to be honest with you, around these fair isles of ours. And yes, this is also true. She has to start playing soon. Otherwise, if she's needed, she would be rusty. Nothing wrong with that as a name. But yes, I think we should be very pleased for Aoife that she is out there. And it'll be a game against China. As it's your home country, Sarah, what's the score going to be?
I'll be very optimistic. I'll say 3-0.
3-0. Nice.
We'll have a lot of confidence, you know, from the qualifiers, and it's a good team spirit we have at the moment. So I would like to add actually that the whole injury situation, I've had quite a few people asking me on Twitter, you know, how has she been selected? You know, has she been put in there at the expense of other players? We have a lot of injured centre backs at the moment anyway. And Vera Pauw has said that this, because she hasn't really played for United, this is really the best opportunity to assess her in training and decide if we want to go forward with her into the World Cup. So just kind of clarify that situation.
John Fry thinks she's scoring. How about that?
I'll take that.
Me too. 100%. 100%. Cool beans. Right, well, there we go. So we've done England. We've done Ireland. You'd expect us to go to Scotland next, but no. We're going for a little continental holiday. We've come all the way back through England, back through the Channel Tunnel, and we're going to have a little chat about a little Estelle Cascarino and our Norwegian Reds, because they are in the, excuse me, let me check my notes, Tournoi de France. That's what they're going to be in. And yes, Cascarino, Thor, and VBR. My first question about all of this, they're going to be playing Denmark, Uruguay, Norway, and of course, France. We know Cascarino hasn't had the chance to play much for us. She's quite new to the club. That's fine. Thor and VBR. Mr. Commode, I am pretty certain we were told they're not getting picked for the international side unless they start getting some minutes. So Mr. Skinner either play them or they've got to go elsewhere. Seems like they were just chatting rubbish. What say you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think ultimately, you shouldn't really pay much attention to what international managers say. Ultimately, you pick a team to win. If you're good enough to get in the team, you'll play, and it's and that's what it comes down to. I think Wildham, probably the only person related to United, might be disappointed by Ellis return of a red card because might have had an opportunity. But yeah, I think hopefully they do well, and it'll be good if they can, get a few minutes their belt. I'm sure they will, and it'll be a tough challenge. As we know, France are a good team and that, so at least they'll play against decent opposition, and hopefully they can do well. The national team bring that form into the United soon, because like Bev was saying before, hopefully they'll they might start against Durham possibly.
On a serious note, Sarah, how do you see I can't believe it's done it again. I'm going to go and deal with that stopwatch, which is probably going in the bin now. I'm very annoyed with that. I'm going to have to change rooms with it. But just before I do, Sarah, what's your thoughts on those three players? Do you think they're going to get minutes? Will they start, bearing in mind the fact they've not played very much for their club?
I would say so. I mean, I can see Maria getting the minutes. I think she played every minute in the Euros, if I recall correctly. Vilda, I'm not sure. I have to say I was surprised by her selection, given the comments that the manager has made. Although she has been picking her regardless, so it's a weird one. Cascarino, yeah, it's her. See, her twin sister as well is included, and she's played a lot more for France than she has I think 2020 was her last time being picked for France, whereas her sister has, she's been in the Euros. She's had over 50 caps, I think, at this point. So yeah, it's hard to say, but I think we might see them get some minutes. Yeah.
Fair play. This is a really interesting point about Cascarino. We're going to come to you on that one, Beth, in just a second. But yes, it was returning the stopwatch, and I'd like to apologise for the beeping joy that is. I didn't break it, Connor. I threw it in the hope that it would break. It did not. It survived. It's like a cockroach. It will still be here after nuclear disaster. So, no, I didn't toss it. I pushed the button, and it's now over there in the bedroom. So if it goes off, we shan't hear it. And if we do, then I'm going to break the stopwatch, because that's managed to get through 2 walls, and that's not acceptable for a stopwatch. So there we go. Not in the bin. It works. It was a present. I didn't really mean to throw it as hard as I did. Anyway, important points. Where were we? Just saying. This one here, Beth. Cascarino playing as left wing back for France today. If that's true, and there's no reason why Mr. Sandevil or Miss Sandevil could be saying that otherwise. That's a difference for us, isn't it? Because we very much see it as a midfielder. What would be your thoughts in Cascarino playing there, and also your thoughts on Thor and VBR getting picked, even though they've not had much time?
I mean, they're especially being only a couple months out from the World Cup. I'm not surprised. I know that national team managers, to put it bluntly, talk big smack sometimes, but when you're this close to an international tournament and you kind of have an idea of your main players, it's very hard to deviate from that, even if they aren't playing as much as they probably should be. But with Estelle or with Cascarino, I'm not shocked at all. There's been a lot of midfielders playing as defenders. Crystal Dunn, huge one. But Kelly O'Hara, huge one that I can think off the top of my head. I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. If she can play more in a defensive role, I think that honestly benefits us as well because she can be a little bit more versatile on the pitch. But I am a little surprised that she got called up, but I don't know the situation of the France squad, so I can't say if like there's injuries or not. So yeah, we'll take what we can get.
Good points. And I suppose the last bit on this sort of Norwegian / French tournoi. This is it, really, isn't it? Skinner's going to focus on Manchester United first. National managers to save their breath. He will pick the players that he wants to pick. And really, it's kind of irrelevant in terms of national managers. Do you think there's a duty to the players to give them that opportunity? Or do you agree, pretty much where I go with this, which is that the players need to be doing their stuff in training and giving him no option but to play them? What's the general consensus there? Anyone can pick that up.
I would agree that they need to show him that they deserve to be picked. His duty is absolutely to United, and it's not really up to him to be thinking about the national teams. I mean, I know Vera Pauw said he was delighted that Aoife has been picked, so he definitely cares, about their how they get on internationally, but it's not a priority for him, and it shouldn't be. It reminds me of Fergie, actually, how he hated, international breaks and the possibility of injuries. So it just always reminds me of that. But yeah, I think they, you don't owe anybody a place based on things like that. They have to just demonstrate it in training.
Absolutely. Were you going to say something, John?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just agree with Sarah. I think you got to show that you win play, but it goes back to your cliche. You can only pick 11, and if you got a squad of 20, 11, only 11 will play, and if you do well, you'll continue to play. And I think it's up to other squad players to prove their point when they do get an opportunity. And obviously, players like Builder done okay when they play, but they've not been spectacular or anything. So maybe at times she should have been given an opportunity, but ultimately the manager's paid to make decisions, and he picks, in his view, the best 11 to win. And overall, the team has done well this season.
Absolutely. Just to this point here, I will be gobsmacked, and I don't say this to be mean, but gobsmacked, bearing in mind the quality and the talent that is available for us in midfield for England. Lucy Stan's going to have to go on a mad one to get herself above some of the players that are there. Not to say that she can't, but my goodness, she's going to have to really rip it up underneath Carla Ward there, I think, to steal one of those World Cup positions. But we will see. We will see. Brilliant. Right, listen, we're cracking through these people. We've still got more to come. We've got 2 more international discussions to have, including the discussion. And then after that, we'll move on to Emma Hayes and her rather interesting comment, shall we say, today, before revealing the winner of our poll, who is the favourite player for Manchester United. Before we do, back to the home nations, because Scotland and Wales, they are in the notes again. Pinatar Cup. What are these things? What, so many things. It's like, what are we doing? But yeah, they're in the Pinatar Cup, which is going to involve the Philippines and Wales, obviously, and Scotland and Iceland. Now, of course, if you are a Scotland fan, and to be fair, we were talking about our other teams that we could play for. If I wasn't to play for England, then the other team I could play for would have been Scotland, what with having a Scottish granddad. So that would have been quite nice. Obviously not in this match, because I'm not a Scottish girl, but that would have been the team I could have gone for. Couldn't have helped you there. You'd still have lost 2-0 to Iceland. And to be fair, if I'd have been playing, it probably would have been more. So there we go. But yeah, not a great result there. Hansen did start. Obviously, no, she's out on loan, whereas Martha Thomas then came on as a sub. Wales are currently playing. They've kicked off in their little game against the Philippines. And great news, I know it's been mentioned in the chat already by some. Carrie Jones, obviously we know she's at loan to Leicester. She started. Of course, Hayley Ladders started because that's literally her job. Although, again, it looks as though, I think, she may have been, yes, she has. She's been picked as defender again, which is something very interesting. But the most important one, Saf Middleton Patel, is in goal. She just went on emergency loan, didn't she? Sort of like a dual loan type thing. And now she's starting for her national team. So that feels like a really good place to start. We've been talking about goalkeepers. This is someone who we know has got a bright future in the game. Is it just sad in some ways that in order to get a game for Manchester United, you've got to get rid of Mary Earps, which is a little bit like trying to push over the Angel of the North with just your fingers? Sarah, what say you?
Yeah, I think so. But also, she's still very young. What is she, 18? I think 18. And she's got hopefully a very long career ahead of her. And keepers obviously tend to play a bit longer than outfield players. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that just yet. And I think getting this game for Wales is great experience for her. And I understand she's actually leaving the camp early because she'll be going off to play with the under-19s in their tournament. I think it's in Portugal. So yeah, to get that game for the senior side is huge for her.
Absolutely. And apparently Emsley missed 2 sitters, Corsie too. So there you go. Unlucky. But great news for Saf. What do you think about this lad being in defence, John? I know that she played a little bit for us, but that's a madness, isn't it? That she's being put there consistently for her country when, centre mid's her place.
Yeah, it is a bit strange, but it has happened quite regularly at international level, Cascarino playing left back for France, obviously Rachel Daly for England. If you look at the men's game, McTominay tends to play in defence for Scotland, doesn't he? He plays midfield for United. So yeah, it does seem a bit odd. I'm not sure because I personally think Hayley Ladd is one of the most underrated midfielders in the WSL. So I don't think their midfielders are better than Ladd. Whether it doesn't trust the defence she doesn't trust the defence and she knows Ladd is a good tackle in that. And I do think didn't she play defence for us last season in a couple of games when a few of our defenders were injured, if I remember rightly. But it does seem particularly odd that she's not getting a game in midfield because if she's a regular starter for United, you would have thought she'd be one of the best players to play, for a team like Wales, for example. But it does seem a bit odd. But well done, Saf, anyway, on the call up and starting for a country. What a big achievement that is.
It's brilliant. It's great news. And again, talking about Ladd, it is a bit like McSauce playing in defence for Scotland as McTominay for the uninitiated few there. Some terrible news has just come in. I mentioned the Angel of the North, and Beth doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about. We need to come up with something that it kind of looks like. I mean, I said it's a bit like Christ the Redeemer, only it's nothing like Christ because you can actually tell who it is.
It's a bit like trying to knock down Mount Rushmore with your fist.
Just imagine an aeroplane and then just stand the aeroplane up. That's basically what the Angel of the North kind of looks like. It's just a massively. Well, you need to Google it. Angel of the North.
It's not very angelic.
Really at all, is it?
We'll send Beth a picture later on. So,
Sounds good.
it's up near Newcastle.
Absolutely madness. And John, you were very shouting at me. I presume this is when what you mean by that was this one. I wasn't trying to say it was a stupid comment. I was just trying to say I'd be amazed if Lucy Stanningford pushes herself into the England squad. His point is a good one. You have to leave to get in there. But if Lucy Stan gets picked for England in the World Cup, I will be apologising on there, obviously, and giving her lots of credit. So there we go. Beth, what's your thoughts about Scotland and Wales there? Let's talk about the Scottish side, Hansen and Thomas. How well do you think Hansen's been doing this season? And do you think she's got a chance to get back into the United squad, or do you think she will be gone for good in the summer?
I hope she's not gone for good. She's been playing amazingly. And if she gets a chance, I think she could absolutely break into the team. I could see her breaking into the team. Or at least rotating, kind of doing what Garcia has been doing the past couple games, like coming on as an impact sub. I think even that would be better than sitting on the bench all the time. I think she's doing great. Yeah. I didn't watch the game, so I really don't have much else to say.
Neither did I. That's why it's made it to like number 6 on the list of things we're talking about. But now we get the chance to go in a bit stronger. So there we go. There's Scotland and Wales. They're dealt with. It seems one person who has gone out internationally. Now we'll leave the controversial side of this. I just want to ask, first of all, we had another situation with Bev Priestman saying that Leon needed minutes. She's not had many, yet she's been chosen. Just go round, usual sort of way. Sarah, John and Beth, do you think she's going to get minutes to kick off with? And how do you think she's going to get on? Bearing in mind, she's not played that much football. It can't be easy internationally, which is the highest level, to just turn up all of a sudden. I know it's the She Believes Cups, but there's only so much you can believe can get you through. You need to have actually played football. So what do we think on that one? And then we'll get on to obviously the bigger parts of the whole Canadian problem. So Sarah.
Yeah, it is tricky. I mean, I can understand, frustrations that she might have. We talked about it on Twitter a while ago. I think just, as we said, like nobody at club level, like nobody's owed minutes. We don't know what goes on in training, and we don't see, the thought process behind picking one player over another. But, she's been so important for Canada just in general that I can see her getting a lot of minutes in this tournament and doing really well because she's such a good player. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think she will get minutes, and obviously, as I would say, she's a very good player for Canada. Obviously, we said that it's up to Skinner to pick the team and all that to win, but obviously, you got to respect that these international managers will want the players to be playing regular minutes at club football, and obviously Leon is a key player for Canada, and if she's not playing for us, you can understand why they might be a little bit frustrated by that. But for me, it shouldn't give Skinner any headaches or anything. He should just pick the team. But yeah, I do believe she'll get a good few minutes for Canada, and yeah, I think she will hopefully score a few goals and then come back to us.
Yeah, I agree. I love watching Leon play for Canada, and one of the comments saying Sinclair and Leon are a deadly combination. Absolutely correct. I love watching them together, and I think she's going to get minutes. I think she's going to play really well. I think she's going to grab a couple goals. hopefully we'll get on to the other part. Hopefully it doesn't flame out like TJ said in the comments. Yeah.
Oh, I was trying very hard to do two things at once there, and I couldn't unmute. Never mind, it's all good. Let's get then to the seriousness of it, really. And Beth, I'm going to come back to you because you live just next door. So I'm going to assume that you know more about this than me. So I'm going to give you the chance to just sort of let everybody know. Connor didn't really want to go into it too much on Monday because he's not seen too much about it, and that's fair enough. As a rule, we're generally with the players no matter what goes on. But talk to us. What's happening over there in Canada, and just how serious is it?
Yeah, so I've read all of this from mostly The Athletic and the statements that have come out. I don't really have a lot of connections with Canada, but from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing is basically the Canadian Federation has cut spending for both the men's and the women's side. So it's not just the women's. It is worse on the women's side, especially at least looking at it through the optics, because they are Olympic champions. They've been playing and getting into World Cups and like bronze medal, silver. I actually don't know if they have a silver, but I know they have bronze multiple. They're a much better team than the men have been historically. And yeah, cutting budget, hasn't paid the players in 14 months, which is absolutely insane. It's crazy. And I know that the national team was supposed to go on strike for a couple, I don't know how long the strike was supposed to be, but apparently there is a law in Canada where if it's an unlawful strike, it has to go through the process of getting approved. And they determined that it was unlawful. If they do, you can be sued and legal action can be taken against the team. So the Canadian Federation has come back and said, you have to play, even though we're not paying you, even though we cut the budget a crazy amount, that you have to play or we will take legal action and possibly, yes, exactly, threaten with individual lawsuits up to millions of dollars taken from the players. And they don't make a lot. They don't make a lot at all. And they don't make enough to make it feasible for them, especially if the Canadian Federation isn't paying them. That's even less money in their pocket because we unfortunately know the clubs don't pay them as much as, let's say, the men's side. I think if the men's side would go on strike, they might, especially the top players. You have to remember a lot of the Canadian players, even on the men's side, do not play at very high level. They do make a lot of money over on the men's side, but they do not make as much as, say, if England was going to go on strike or if the US was going to go on strike. They might be able to pull that out of pocket. But in Canada, no. Like, it's crazy. It's terrible. It's horrible. I feel bad for the players. They're put in a really, really, really crappy situation. And I know that a lot of the statements that have come out have said that, like, where we have to play unless we get, because we will get lawsuits against us. And basically they're playing as a protest. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, see how the games go. Like a comment said before, will they be incredibly motivated to say, this is who we are, this is how we can play, pay us what we deserve, basically pay us at all, please? Or will it just be a little too much because, as everyone's saying, everybody in the back room, the coaching staff, the players, they're extremely pissed off, understandably. And it's crazy. I feel horrible for them. I've loved watching Canada. Yep. The past quite a few years, ever since 2012, before that, but especially the 2012 Olympics, that Canadian-US game, that helped me get into soccer, football. And I really wish there was a lot more we could do as fans. But yeah, and obviously we know that Canada is such a strong team. Hopefully they can pull through or at least get. I don't know. I'm basically at a loss for words because, as TJ said, this is Olympic gold medalists. This is happening to Olympic gold medalists. This is insane.
Absolutely.
And it's horrible.
And I think one of the things that I'd picked up on, certainly through trying to read through this, is that part of the problem is that they've sorted out some sponsorship that's meant to be all the way up until a certain period of time. So they've got it nailed in for like the next decade or so for money that's meant to be coming in. And nobody knows where this money is, where it's gone, or it's been spent on. And obviously with the World Cup having just happened, the Canadian men had quite a good World Cup run. They saw how much money was being spent on the resources and everything that was going into the men. And it's not even like they're saying, pay us the same amount as the men. What they're saying is, well, if Bev Priestman turns around and says, I don't know, I want this person here, I want this member of staff, I need this person, a physio, a dietitian, this, that, and the other, sports and fitness, or a data analyst, whatever it is they might want, all they're saying is, well, we should be able to have that too. We've got half as many people as you had working for the men in the World Cup. Surely we can afford to get a few more people in then and give us more of a chance, especially seeing how we've been more successful. And basically, the Canadian FA seems to have just said, no dice. What I will say here, Sarah, my understanding is that the men's team also put out a statement at the same time, or just after, entirely standing for the Canadian women, saying that it's entirely unfair. And so the men are very much, no, this isn't right, and you need to sort them out. And rightly so, if they've not been paid for 14 months. But in terms of the sponsorship, Sarah, where do you see all this going? What's the next step? Because as Beth says, what can we do? As fans, we can do a fair bit in terms of being on Twitter and supporting. But ultimately, there's not much we can personally do. It comes down to who. It's that age-old thing of the FA might be accountable for football, but who are the FA accountable to?
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a huge understanding of the ins and outs of it. I mean, I feel like I have a better understanding now, having listened to what Beth has said. But yeah, it's difficult. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest.
Could you ever imagine that happening here? No.
I'd hope not. I'd hope not. Yeah, I would hope not, especially with how. But obviously, I couldn't have seen it happening in Canada, even if soccer's not their big sport. It's hockey. But I agree with what TJ said. I don't want to legally say that it is something.
I'll say
would not be.
Me, so it sounds like it could be a bit of a cover-up.
Yeah, it really does. Like, where's the money going? Who's the money going to?
It's not a legal thing. If it's not a cover-up, just show us the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom Cruise would say, "Show me the money." Was that him? It wasn't Tom Cruise that said that, was it? I've lost myself.
It's something like Jim McDonald. Corey, put the money in the bag.
I'm not sure what you just did there, John, but I'm not sure I want you to do it again.
A terrible accent. So famous Coronation Street clips.
Corey.
Yeah,
an accent for
put the money in the bag. No, I think. I mean, the other facts you got to bear in mind is you were saying Canada hosts the next Men's World Cup in 2026. Yeah. So you would have thought now's the time to invest, rather because it's only 3 years away. I mean, Beth has articulated very well what the situation in Canada is, and comments mentioned about the Spain situation. Obviously, we were on the channel, we're on this show 2 weeks ago. We mentioned about attitudes to women's sport, women's football, and that kind of thing. And for me, this is obviously it's not just related to women; it does affect the men's team as well. But for me, it's another nail in the coffin for women's footballer across the globe, and you want, it's just quite flabbergasting what's going on, and the fact they can't even go on strike is just disgusting, really. When you're living in a democracy, the right to strike is a basic human right. Obviously, you got to go through got to apply for it and that, but it seems very complicated. I mean, this country is full of strikes at the moment, isn't it? So maybe
So
it's a
was
bit
ours. Jeez.
harder in Canada at the moment, but it
Protest.
just seems very wrong. As for what happened here, I don't personally think it will be allowed to happen, because I think after the Euros and that, I think there's a great outcry to try and invest in women's sport. And obviously, we got more sponsorships coming through. Sky having shows now. Obviously, the prize fund for the Women's FA Cup has increased and that. So for me, I do think you will get more investment in the women's game going forwards. And I do think after the success of Euros, I think there'll be a greater what do you call it? A greater sense of purpose to try and invest in it. But obviously, our thoughts go out to all, female footballers in Canada and the men's team too.
Beth, sorry, so I was just going to ask Beth, if the men's team, are they being paid?
That is something that I do not know.
Okay.
If anybody in the comments can let us know.
TJ, get on Google, mate.
Yeah, TJ.
Get moving, TJ. Are the Canadian men getting paid? Sarah, what was you going to say? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now, our women's team protested about the lack of investment. They were, they didn't even have their own tracksuits. Like they just, they were being given schoolboy size tracksuits and having to get changed in toilets, and just, it was ridiculous. And I believe our men's team did come out in support of them as well. But it's interesting looking back at that now, given where we currently are, going to a World Cup, and just the level of support that our women's team suddenly has. And I know there's been a kind of a shift generally since the Euros, but it just makes me wonder, how many people turned a blind eye at the time. I mean, that's probably a whole other issue, but it's just, we now suddenly have a lot of support, which is great to see. But yeah, it wasn't all that long ago that we were protesting about these things here.
Apparently, it's like Rowan Nobbs's shorts, but what they would be, I do not know. But here's an interesting thing. So, per a quick Google, the Canadian men's national team had a pay dispute last summer regarding $15 million. Now, I don't know if that has been sorted or not. I suppose it's not the right thing to say, but at least it's happened in both sets, because it would really not be good. Oh, and here we go. They went on strike as well over it. But presumably they had enough time to throw that one in there. It's just sad, isn't it? Because I'm not going to remember all their names. You know what I'm like when it comes to anything outside of the women's football in my current sphere. But one of them is it Sinclair? Is she the one who said, I'm going to retire after the World Cup?
I heard something that the head coach might be considering their position, possibly. I don't know. I only saw it briefly on Twitter. I don't know how true it is, but
it just doesn't feel like this is how football should be. And it just feels a bit naff that we've got a national FA that doesn't appear to be able to sort out its own finances, and has caused as much trouble as they have. And it's not cool. It's not cool for people that just want to play football, and whether that be the men, whether that be the women. The purpose for your FA is to ensure that everybody in that country has equal access to football and the ability to be able to play it. And I find it's gobsmacking, absolutely gobsmacking, as to what on earth, what's going on here. Skinner out people could be excited. Why? I'm looking at the comments, TJ. You've lost me. I'm not sure what's happened there.
Skinner for the Canada job.
I think they're talking to themselves here. Something's happened. They're obviously having a conversation with someone.
Just got
Nob Short's got her a hat trick. It has nothing to do with Nob. She didn't use her feet. That's not what happened. But yeah, so they are the boys' kit, and they're huge on her. Look like, but maybe Nobs is just short. Who knows? Sophie Smith, thank you, Ston Ampong. Nice to see you in the chat. We've not seen you there before, but thank you, Sophie Smith. It was close. Sinclair Smith. I knew it began with an S. And yes, Bev Priestman might be leaving, which is what I made the comment about, or is that leaving?
yeah.
And it's guaranteed. It's just, you would hope so. This is what I mean. Something's got to happen. It's not right. It's not like we're talking a few months, 14 months. Even if the men's one did get sorted out, it's crazy that this can be the case. And it just needs more people to just realise that, this is where we are. Where do you stand on the equal pay debate? Because this has come out a bit. I know that Beth, the American men and women are supposed to get paid the same amount, aren't they?
Yep.
Where do we stand on that one? If England were to come out now and go, right, we're going to play, we're going to pay the men and the women the same amount per appearance, and the same over there in Ireland for you guys. Where would you stand on that? Do you think that for national teams? Because I kind of get it with clubs. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. I mean, you can't, in the nicest possible way, you can't turn around as Manchester United and go, we're giving Marcus Rashford £200,000 a week, so therefore we're going to start throwing that to Ella Toone and Leslie Russo. It'd be lovely, but my goodness, the income's just not there for that. But nationally, is there a case for saying, especially when you look at some of the grounds now, Wembley's getting sold out more and more often, is there not an argument that national teams should now potentially be given equal pay, seeing as how the interest is there, Sarah?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, like you said, it's different at club level. Internationals, I mean, it kind of, without getting into specifics, I don't really know the numbers, but you would imagine they would play roughly the same amount of games in a year, maybe, and they're selling out stadiums. In our case, I know we could sell out the Aviva Stadium in Dublin, but the women actually play their home games at the moment at one of the smaller club stadiums. I think I'm not sure the capacity could be 10,000 or something like that, but there was a whole thing recently about holding the friendly against France in July, just before they go off to the World Cup at the Aviva Stadium, but it's suddenly not available because of pitch redevelopment or something like that. So they're being put in the smaller stadium, and then they're supposed to be adding an extra stand, but they're not sure if that will be ready in time, but they're expecting a sellout anyway. But yeah, I absolutely think it would be fair. Equal pay at international level.
Would you go along with that, John?
Yeah, I think I would, because obviously, from an England perspective, the men haven't won a trophy in a long time, and obviously the women did win the Euros last year, so I do think they deserve that enticement. And throughout the Euros, and whenever England play at home, we always sell out the stadium. So for me, there's plenty of appetite for the women's game, and I think that. So I do think it's a reasonable argument to say maybe they should be paid the same amount as the men. It's also saying that generally the men's wages, they do donate it to charity usually, so they don't usually collect it. So, but for me, I think it is an argument to say, and obviously the Wales national team have done the same, haven't they? They're paying their men and women equally, so I do think it would send a strong signal if England did it as well, because I think forgive me for the likes of Wales, they're not like one of the big nations, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Whereas England is one of the main countries in Europe, so if England were to do it, it might make countries like France consider it, and Germany considering that kind of thing. So I do think it is certainly worth considering, because there's plenty of tickets being sold, and the FA is making a fair bit of money from women's team at the moment. So I do think it will be good.
Absolutely. And Beth, just quickly for you as well. I mean, it's already happened for you, so we don't really need to ask if you think it should happen in your country, because it is. But this is the big one. It's the fact that the women do tend to outdraw the men, which is kind of what the story was in England. When you go back to, is it the Dick Smith ladies? I can't quite remember what they were called, but back then, that was what was happening. They were outdrawing the men. There was far more people that were turning up, and that was part of the reason why women's football got banned, because the men got themselves all got their knickers in a twist, basically, and went, oh, no, we can't have the women doing better than the men. Oh, God, no, that's not allowed, for shame. So therefore, they just got rid of it, because that's what they were able to do. And, you know, this is where we end up with the men's national team making more money getting knocked out in the first knockout game than the women's team made winning back-to-back World Cups, which is a craziness. You would think with international football, I know it's, like I say, it's already in your country, but it's fair, isn't it? In international football, if your teams are selling out the national stadiums, then they should be getting paid the same amount as the men who are selling out the National League stadium.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It absolutely is fair. And yeah, the U.S. is a very interesting place when it comes to soccer. With the women have been just bigger than the men, like more popular than the men, all the way back. I would argue 99 when we won the World Cup against China, the Brandy Chastain, like the broad picture. Yeah, I mean, there was a dip. The 2015, that, I mean, it blew up in 99, but it really blew up in 2015. It really, really blew up.
99 was a great year.
It was a great year. I remember I went to a game. I've never been, and this is the thing. This is the crazy thing about the U.S., and you can ask, not everyone, but you can ask a lot of people. I've never been to a men's national team game, ever. I've been to countless women's national team games. I was in Pittsburgh, and I think they brought in like 44, 45,000 people right after, 90,000 back in 99. And they brought out about 44 to 45,000 people at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's not known for a soccer city at all. It's hockey, baseball, football, American football. That is it. And then just this past, when they played at Audi Field here in DC, that's only about, I think, a 20,000 seater stadium. Everybody in DC was like, why are they playing at such a small stadium? And that's crazy to think that the women are the ones we're saying, why are they playing at Audi Field instead of a 45, 50,000 seater stadium? Like, it's insane. And it's amazing. But it is a very, very, very different vibe over here, that the women are much, 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 much bigger than the men.
Absolutely. I mean, and we said it a fortnight ago when we had the conversation about the college system and all that jazz, and bend it like Beckham. America certainly has led the way with what to do, and they've done it again there with the payment. So I'd like to say you heard it here first, but I'm sure some bright sparks already had this idea. But for now, we'll call it ours. Pay the national women the same amount as the national men. Just make it happen. Right, we've got one. I'll tell you what, if Arsenal and City draw, I might just. One last thing, and we're only going to keep it short on this one. Emma Hayes and her little conversation about promotion, relegation, and having a closed league. It sounds a little bit like a European Super League for women. We're not at that stage yet, are we? We shouldn't be sitting here talking about saying no promotion, no relegation. Let's just have an elite group of teams that just play consistently. I think it's different in America because you've got like a set number of teams. But here, the UK, surely, Sarah, is all about promotion relegation. I mean, I've got my own issues with promotion relegation in the women's teams, because the lower down you go, obviously, the more ridiculous it gets. You can get 4 teams. We're in the situation. Stevenage got relegated last season. And one of the teams that's got to stay in there has got like no points. They're just, rubbish. Hounslow, unfortunately, just haven't had the opportunity. They haven't got the players, but yet they were able to stay in their league because somebody else dropped out and all of that sort of jazz. It's a bit of a joke, the promotion and the relegation. The lower down you get, higher up, it makes perfect sense. Leicester City, if they finish bottom, are going to have to go down, and the London City Lionesses will have to come up. And what a moment that is for London City Lionesses to have the chance to mix it with the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, all of that sort of jazz. That's the joy of football. That is football, surely. Surely we're not going to ever go down the road that Emma Hayes has mentioned there in this country for a closed league system.
I can't see it happening, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's a ridiculous idea. Like these teams need to have something to fight for. You know, their whole season, that is their aim. They want to get promotion, and they want to play against the best sides. And I just I mean, these are professional footballers. It's difficult to think about, that they wouldn't give everything in every game, but it would be very difficult if you don't feel like you have a chance of really doing anything. You're just sort of, you're hovering near the bottom and there's no consequences. It's like, oh, well, we're not going to get relegated anyway. So it doesn't really matter that much if, we start dropping points. It doesn't make sense. I just think it's a terrible idea.
Beth, you have a closed league over in America. How does that work for you? Is there such a thing? Whereabouts in America are you from again? Which?
East Coast. Originally from Pennsylvania, like 2 hours from Pittsburgh.
So is there, like Pennsylvania Pirates mini team or something like that might want to be playing in the big leagues and can't because of Orlando Rapids or whatever they're called?
Yeah, we've actually talked about that quite a bit. Like me and my family have talked about it because obviously I'm a huge European football fan, and it's interesting because where I'm from, there's a minor league baseball team called the Altoona Curve, and we're always like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to see them? But yeah, that is correct, TJ. It wouldn't work due to the salary cap in the draft. But it would be interesting to see them like go up through the leagues. And I've worked at minor league baseball single A short season baseball teams, which is like I believe it's right after you get drafted into the MLB. But it would be interesting. It's never going to happen. And yeah, there definitely is what you guys were talking about, the worry of just hovering at the bottom and not doing as well as they probably should. That is called throwing away for a good draft pick. That's what they do. I don't think they ever come out and confirm it. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know that it is a theory that if you are having a bad season, you trash the rest of the season so you can get the first couple draft picks.
But it makes sense. You only got to think about what it's like in American football. The fact that part of your trade system can involve a high pick it's literally a bargaining tool. So I think it does work over there, and we don't need to change America. They're quite happy with what they're doing. We've already said they're doing great stuff for women's football over there, but it's not the same. If you'll forgive me for saying, the home of football, the birthplace of football, where we do it differently. And that's all right. Countries can do things differently. It is allowed. John, little question for you. I want you to pretend now that the WSL in 2018 had been a closed league, one that you're not allowed to be at unless it's by invitation only. Would Manchester United, when they put their team together, still have been put into one of the amateur leagues and just had to stay there? Or do you think that just the name would have then put them into the WSL? And does that not really just show how elitist and pathetic this idea might be?
Yeah, right. I think it's. I honestly don't know what would have been in that situation. I think probably on balance, having Manchester United, a women's football team, would only increase the intrigue in the WSL and that. And I do think the WSL is better for having a Manchester United women's team and a competitive team as well. And for me, Emma Hayes, I haven't seen the comments in full, but yeah, obviously I'm dead against a closed league and that, as you mentioned, America works differently. Obviously, America's a much bigger country, so it's harder to get around, whereas England is, much more small country. It's easier to get around on transport and everything. But for me, it's I think there's certainly areas where you can improve the WSL. For me, I will look at maybe increasing the numbers in the WSL. You know, you got 12 teams at the moment, 22 league games for a league season. If you compare it to the men's game, which is 38, isn't a lot really. So for me, I would look at maybe increasing it to maybe 14 teams, maybe, or maybe 16 maximum. Then you get maybe 26 games each. And I think if you have more teams in WSL, that it'll attract more money, and I think more teams will be able to invest and build their teams up and everything. And then I think there is lagging behind, like the Leicester aren't as good as Chelsea. I think you go look at maybe closing that gap, and also with the low leagues and that. So I think it's you need to look at investment, that kind of thing. But I do think eventually if you increase numbers in the league and have more games, I think that might attract more money for the WSL, and hopefully then we'll go from there. And I do think also getting one team relegated and one team promoted every year is not enough for me. I think if you increase numbers, maybe have 2 teams go down, 2 teams get promoted. I think that will be better, make it more competitive. But yeah, that's what I'd do. But no close league, definitely not.
Absolutely not. TJ makes an interesting point here with the salary cap, ceiling and floor, because the top teams must be outspend the bottom. And I think part of that is just down to, it has to be self-sustainable. And I think this is the biggest problem. The teams that come up need to be able to stay up. I'd be tempted over the next few years to sort of go 1 down, 2 up. They can do something else for the championship, same sort of thing. So they don't lose a team. They can have an additional promotion spot.
I think it's also like in men's football, you also have parachute payments to keep teams going, don't you?
You're not going to get that here because the WSL doesn't have enough money to do that. But I just think if you do that, you're going to give yourself, it goes over a few years, gives you the chance to build up without just bringing, as we just said, 3 or 4 teams up potentially. And what's going to happen to them? Are they just going to end up going straight down? They need that longevity and that ability to be able to sort of sustain it. So I would hope that would help. Let's just see what this salary cap idea has brought up. It's a comp which doesn't have one which will attract the best players, and this is the thing. Again, it comes down to what you've put into it in your team. I'll make a system that makes it more competitive. Make it, TJ. Put it to the board. We'll check it out. Does different salaries encourage footballers to play better? I'm not saying I agree, but it could potentially, absolutely, if there's a higher salary available. We don't have the proof on that. Somebody Google it, TJ. You Google it. That's what I'm going to say on that one. Right, it's nearly time to finish. We've gone on way longer than we normally do. But my goodness, what a show it's been. We've managed to get through so many great things, and it has flown by, which is great. Couple of things. First things first, Beth, you watching? TJ, stop Googling for a second. Watch the screen. Get ready. That's the angel of the North. So look at the size of the people. Then look at the size of the angel of the North, and then imagine trying to push that over with your fingers. It's not going to happen, is it? So that is the angel of the North. And hopefully now you understand what I was saying to you earlier, and all of a sudden it all makes sense. So there we go. Well done. So that's that one. Listen, we've got one last thing to do, and that is to crown who are. At this point, I still hope you're talking about the Angel of the North. Otherwise, I could take that quite as the people that know you. Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
It's like, I remember when they put it in there, it's just like, what the hell did they put it there for?
Looks like the Wicker Man. There you go. So there we go. But we need to finish off by saying who is our favourite player. We can also confirm, by the way, that Green scored a penalty for Wales, and at half time they are 1-0 up against the Philippines. So that could be good news for them. Yes, our poll. Very, very interesting. So the choices were Onabatier, Ella Toone, Leslie Russo, Mary Earps. Before I reveal who the winners were, Sarah, did you vote? And if so, who for?
I was voting in the semi-finals, but I've been thinking about this through the whole show. It's very difficult, but my choice would be Mary Earps.
You would have gone for Mary Earps, baby. Okay. Do you know, they was doing the commentary the other day, and every time they stopped by just saying the ball comes to Mary Earps, it didn't sound right. So I ended up just saying baby. That song is just once it's in your head, it's in your head. John, who would you pick?
Unfortunately, I didn't vote. I'm really sorry, Barry, but I'll go with Ella Toone.
It's all right, because if I have my way, this is going to go out again on Twitter for everybody, for the hundreds that took part, so they can get involved and see if they agree with what the regular viewers of AFU have come up with. That's interesting. We've got one Earps, one Toone. Beth C, what say thee?
Toone. I picked Toone also.
2-2.
Yep.
Fair play. Well, I did vote because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to find out who won. I can tell you that it was fourth place with 15% of our vote was Ella Toone, which surprised me, I have to be honest. Now, it was interesting because on the Twitter votes, it was Mary Earps who got the least of the share out of the semi-final. She was on about 28%. The other three were on 43, 42 and 40 respectively. So it was tight. So on this one, Toone's just missed out with 18%. That was Mary Earps, and I think she was the one who got 42. So interesting. But that means it's between Honor and Lessie, and it's a landslide, really. 21% for one, 47% for the other. As you guys haven't voted in it, it'd be quite good to ask you, who do you think's won out of Honor and Lessie?
Honor.
I think Lessie.
I'm going to go Lessie.
So 2 Lessies, 1 Honor. John K is the winner. And so is Honor. Honor and Jonna. They've managed to get it right. Honor Batier is officially the Manchester United's Aoife United favourite Manchester United women's player. So there you go. So aren't we all going to be gutted if she goes in the summer? That would bring a bit of a downer on it.
Leslie might as well.
Yeah, Leslie should go as well.
Okay.
Just imagine it. Imagine that.
Well, once she finds out the results of this poll, then she'll have to stay.
Maybe that's why Toone was sent off on Sunday, because the referee said, fancy you, so I'll give you a Valentine's card.
Absolutely right. So lots of people with Honor there, yes. TJ picked Mary as well, so fair play there. Does it make anyone else sad that our favourite player is likely to leave? Yes. Yes, it does. But we shall see. And yes, don't say
the two most likely to stay finish bottom.
Well, I mean, you say the most likely. I mean, Ella Toone's got a contract till about 2007.
No, I said the two most likely to stay at the bottom. The two most likely to go came.
That's what I mean. She's not just most likely to stay. I mean, she's literally handcuffed to the door. She's got no chance of getting away for about 5 years. So she's very much kept in. But yes, other than that, I agree. So there we go. Who knew? It is Honor. So we shall see. Does Twitter agree? Probably not. When does Twitter ever agree? So we'll see. Our place to go to agree is it. If you want to agree, look in the mirror. Brilliant. Listen, guys, you've been superb as ever. And it's been a real delight to have you all in. We managed to get through an absolute plethora of stuff. So thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Thank you for joining us. And I do hope, Sarah, you're coming over soon, aren't you? Is it No, you've been over. You came over for the Everton.
I have, yeah. But I am coming back. I'm going to be at Old Trafford as well for West Ham. So,
brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, obviously the result wasn't great, very frustrating, but it was great to be there and got to meet a few friendly faces from this channel. Got to buy some fanzines off Andy. So, yeah, it was a good day.
Excellent. Well, yes. I mean, we had an option. We could have got you on, or we could have got Yehuda on, and we thought
we need to get Beth over now, don't we? We
do.
Exactly.
We'll definitely get you on, I think, for after the West Ham one. That's really good. And we've also got our fingers crossed that a certain commenter might be coming on after Leicester. So give it a couple of weeks, and you just never know if we might be able to get a certain someone in off the comments and behind the camera. That would be really, really good because they always make good points. But anyway, thank you very much. It's been a delight. Hour and 34 minutes, just like watching a football match. We've enjoyed it. It's been great fun. Thanks for your company. We'll see you again soon.